Open Stage would like to acknowledge the Susquehannock peoples, upon whose unceded land we produce this show. Open Stage commits to the work of dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and the exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples that continue today. At Open Stage, we also believe that Black Lives Matter, and you should too. That belief starts with acknowledging plainly how the systems we depend on often operate as if they don't. We at Open Stage proudly stand united with Black people and communities of color during this movement of unrest and uprising. This show is brought to you by Open Stage, a professional theater company. Check out Open Stage's complete list of shows, all of which are offered completely free this season at openstagehbg.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. Artists are, by their nature, nomadic creatures. Like most artists, I made my way in life for many years by moving from place to place. We go where the work is, right? In 2008, I landed in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and never left. For the past 13 years, Open Stage has been my home. I'm Stuart Landon, the artistic director at Open Stage. Open Stage is my workplace, sure, but it's also a place where I gathered with other nomadic beings who have also, through twists and turns of fate and happenstance, found a home here too. We miss our little family, our artists, our students, our audiences. Thank you for watching our 35th season online, taking our virtual classes, and making monthly donations by joining the Inner Circle. Our community's support through this time has been humbling and has carried us through. With your help, we will continue that journey until we can once again open the doors at 25 North Court Street. I hope you'll be there that day. We could sit together and have a drink together and laugh and cry together in a darkened theater. For now, I hope you'll enjoy this little play we've created, closing out this unexpectedly virtual 35th season. It has been an honor to bring Agatha Christie's words to life on our stage. To do so with our small company of artists has been a wonderful experience. It's just a few of us and some cameras and sound equipment in our little theater. The feelings of crazed joy I get when donning the mustache, placing each bit of furniture on the set, handling each teacup, has been accompanied by something else, something quiet and bittersweet and even sad. The emptiness of the room is overwhelming sometimes. We miss you a lot. But we laugh a lot too. And I hope you will as well. I hope we could bring some light into your home today. So, as you watch, lean forward and open your mind, sure. But mostly, just have fun and enjoy. Poirot investigates the affair at the Victory Ball.
What is a good detective story? What makes it so delicious? Good mysteries are filled with compelling cases and colorful suspects, and sprinkled with murders and mansions, abandoned trains, or far-off islands. There are certainly screams and intrigue, and perhaps, yes, even some blood is shed. Perhaps there are chases, or royalty, or escapes, or disguises. But most importantly, the most important ingredient, one must have an excellent detective. And Poirot is brilliant. I hate him sometimes, it's true, but it has been a long marriage between Herr Kiehl and I. I created him. Sometimes I rue the day. Oh, that blasted Belgian. But I suppose if you place your head in a lion's mouth, then you cannot complain one day if he happens to bite it off.
Hercule Poirot's first appearance in Agatha Christie's novel The Mysterious Affair at Styles,
Published in 1920.
was a big hit and a bestseller.
The editor of the sketch magazine was so impressed, he commissioned Christie for 12 short stories starring the Belgian detective.
Thus solidifying Christie's lifelong relationship with her fastidious private eye.
The retired police officer turned world-famous private detective was many things.
Brilliant,
Shrewd,
Eccentric,
meticulous,
short.
rude.
and somewhat vain.
With brilliantine hair and waxed mustache, the aging bachelor enjoys his creature comforts.
It is not a man's working hours that matter, but his hours of leisure.
Poirot is notably scrupulous about his personal habits and professional methodology.
Relying on his little gray cells to solve crimes.
It is the brain, remember, the little grey cells on which one must rely.
His methods
However frustrating to those around him.
are laser focused on finding that most valuable of prize. The truth.
The truth, however ugly in itself, is always curious and beautiful to those who seek it.
Poirot's friend and sometimes assistant
Captain Arthur Hastings.
is our guide in this tale.
And so, friends, we offer you a story featuring the famous Belgian detective, world-famous Belgian detective.
Hercule Poirot.
Since I have first-hand knowledge of most of his cases, you see, it has been suggested that I select a few of the most interesting and place them on record. In so doing, I feel that I cannot do better than begin with that strange tangle that aroused such widespread public interest at the time. I, of course, refer to
The affair at the Victory Ball.
Of what are you thinking so deeply, my dear Hastings?
Well, to tell you the truth, I was puzzling over this unaccountable affair at the Victory Ball. The papers are full of it.
Oh?
The more one reads it, the more shrouded in mystery the whole thing becomes. Who killed Lord Cronshaw? Was Coco Courtenay's death the same evening a coincidence? Was it an accident, or did she deliberately take an overdose of cocaine? These are the questions I ask. myself.
Decidedly, this new pomade is a marvel for the mustaches. Quite so. And what are your replies to your questions, my friend?
Monsieur Poirot, Inspector Chap is here
Oui, Miss Lemon.
to see you.
Oui, Miss Lemon.
He is here to seek your advice.
Oui, Miss Lemon. Please let him in, Miss Lemon.
I wonder if he's here about the victory ball. The Scotland Yard man was a sharp, dark little ferret-faced fellow and an old friend.
Ah, my good friend Jap, what brings you to see us this afternoon?
Well, Monsieur Poirot, I'm on a case that seems very much in your line, and I came along to find out if you'd like a finger in the pie.
I very much enjoy pie.
Well, it's this victory ball mess. Oh, come now, you like a hand in that.
Well, my friend Hastings would, at all events, he was speaking of it all morning. N'est-ce pas, mon ami?
Well, you shall be in on it too, sir. I can tell you, there's something of a feather in your cap to have inside knowledge of a case like this. Well, to business. You know the facts of the case, right, Poirot?
Only what I have read in the newspapers, but the the reporters, their imaginations are sometimes misleading. Perhaps recount the story from the beginning.
Well, as everyone in the world and his wife knows, on Tuesday last, a grand victory ball was held. Now, every two-penny, halfpenny orp calls itself that nowadays, but this was the real thing. It was held at Colossus Hall in all of London there, including your Lord Cronshaw and his party.
Lord Cronshaw. His dossier, his bioscope? No, how do you call it? Biograph?
Well, according to society gossip, Viscount Cronshaw was 5th Viscount, 25 years of age, rich, unmarried, and very fond of the theatrical world. There were rumors of his being engaged to Miss Courtenay of the Albany Theatre, who was known to her friends as Coco, and who was, by all accounts, a very fascinating young lady. They seemed very much in love and were the darlings of the society gossip. Society gossip also reported that there was something wrong that fateful evening. Lord Cronshaw was moody and strange in his manner. When his group dined in a small private room, everyone noticed that he and Miss Courtenay were no longer on speaking terms. A lover's quarrel defined.
The society gossip is an unfortunate bit of lowbrow journalism, Hastings.
Well, I read it from time to time, by accident, you know. It's right next to the, obituaries.
Uh-huh.
Well, I read that the victory ball was a spectacular affair, a masked costume ball. It really is quite dashing, Poirot. At 1:30 a.m., the whole party celebrates with a grand cotillion, and everyone takes off their masks.
Uh-huh.
The Cronshaw party represented the old Italian comedy, whatever that may be.
The Commedia dell'arte.
Pardon?
The Commedia dell'arte.
Oh, bless you.
The Commedia dell'arte.
Are you quite all right, Poirot?
Continue, please.
Well, according to society gossip, Lord Cronshaw's party consisted of 6 people. Lord Cronshaw was dressed as Harlequin, of course.
And of course, the beautiful actress Miss Coco Courtenay was naturally the lovely Columbina.
Oh, yes.
Magnifique.
Next was Cronshaw's uncle, the Honourable Eustace Beltane. He was dressed as the grotesque Punchinello. You see, all the costumes were copied from a set of priceless china figurines, forming part of Beltane's extensive figurine collection. He enjoys expensive trinkets and such.
I'm a collector.
Beltane has come into the title and estates of his late nephew Cronshaw, making him top of my suspect list, Poirot.
Indeed. Please continue, mon ami.
Accompanying Beltane was the pretty American widow, Mrs. Isabella Malaby, who matched him as the lovely Pulcinella. She has been scouring Europe, seeking out her next husband. She seems to have a history of gaining and losing husbands quickly.
It's a talent, really.
How many times has Mrs. Malaby been wed?
Just about half a dozen times. Here's to lucky number 7.
According to society gossip, at least half of her former spouses found an unfortunate early demise, and at least one went missing.
The most black widow.
Yes, indeed. Rounding out the party were the Davidsons, Matthew and Margaret. They played the naive Poirot and his devoted Pierrette, the solemn clowns. Matthew is an actor by trade and is really quite an excellent performer. I very much enjoyed him in the old Grundy's new production of The Imitation of Our Lady the Sun, Part 2. He really was dashing.
Why, thank you.
Of course. Having worked extensively with Miss Coco Courtenay in many stage and radio plays, Davidson saw that Coco had been crying and seemed on the verge of hysterics. The meal was an uncomfortable one, and as they all left the supper room, she turned to Davidson and requested that he take her home.
At once! I am just sick of this ball.
The young actor tried to secure a reconciliation, seeking first an audience with Lord Cronshaw in the supper room. Emerging into the hall, he spoke to Miss Courtenay.
Now, Coco, see here. Everything is going to be all right.
But his efforts were unavailing. They got a taxi back to her flat, Coco weeping openly the whole way. Once they arrived, he stated he went inside and sat with her as she called, although obviously very much upset. She did not confide in him, merely reiterating again and again that she would
Make old Crunch sorry for this.
Well, the actress certainly has a flair for the dramatic. And according to reports, that is the only hint Scotland Yard has that Coco's death might not have been accidental. Isn't that right, Jack?
Yes, sir, and it's precious little to go on. After Davidson had quieted Miss Courtenay down some, it was too late to return to the Colossus Hall, and accordingly, he went straight home to his flat in Chelsea, where he was joined soon after by his wife, Margaret Davidson, who informed him of the terrible tragedy that had occurred after his departure. You see, it seems Lord Cronshaw had become more and more moody as the evening went on, and his party hardly saw him. It was about 1:30 in the morning.
Just before the grand cotillion, when everyone was to take off their masks.
Hastings.
Sorry. It is so exciting, though.
The American, Mrs. Malaby, noticed Cronshaw standing on a balcony, looking down on the merry party below.
Yoo-hoo!
She called up to him, inviting him to dance. He said he would come down and then left the balcony. The minutes passed, but Lord Cronshaw did not appear. She became concerned, and the search commenced, but it was met with no success until Mrs. Malaby checked the supper room. And what a sight! There was Harlequin, sure enough, but stretched on the ground, with a table knife in his heart!
Ah! Sorry.
a fascinating intrigue.
A terrible crime.
Stabbed with a butter knife.
Well, the knife being grabbed from the table would hold with the murder happening in the heat of a quarrel.
Inspector Japp, I have a question. The costumes, were they exact replicas of Monsieur Beltane's famous figurines?
I don't know all the details about the costumes, and anyway, I don't see what that has got to do with it.
No? Well, at any rate, let's go back to the scene of the crime. Was there no clue as to the perpetrator of the deed?
In the man's pocket, we found a small enameled box. It had the letter C engraved on the lid.
C. C for Cronshaw, yes?
It was half full.
Of cocaine.
The man's hand was locked tightly in a fist. We opened it. We discovered this.
Japp removed a small object and handed it over to Poirot. It was a small pom-pom of emerald green with a few ragged threads hanging from it, as though it had been wrenched violently away.
Tell me, Japp, was there a curtain in this little supper room?
Oh, yes, but...
But did it have a space behind it large enough to conceal a man?
Yes, there was a recess behind it. Poirot, have you been to this place?
No. I supplied the curtain from my own brain. Without it, this drama is not reasonable, and always one must be reasonable. But tell me, Japp, did they not send for a doctor?
Oh, well, yes. But there was nothing to be done. Death must have been instantaneous.
I understand. But did the doctor give evidence at the inquest?
Yes.
And did the doctor say anything unusual about the body? Was there any symptom that he felt was abnormal?
I don't know what you're getting at, but he did say something about a stiffness about the limbs that he could not account for.
Mon Dieu! Oh, Japp, that gives one to think, does it not?
I could see that it had certainly not given Japp to think.
If you mean poison, Poirot, who on earth would poison a man and then stick a knife in him?
In truth, that would be ridiculous.
Yes, it would.
Is there anything you want to see, Poirot? Should we investigate the room where the body was found?
No. I do not think so. But I am interested in Lord Cronshaw's views on the subject of drug-taking. Was Lord Cronshaw addicted to cocaine?
Oh, he had very strong views on the subject of dope, publicly at least. He sat on the board of directors for the Aristocrats Against Addiction Alliance, or the AAAA, or...
But that's a bit off, isn't it? It seems a bit hypocritical to me, no?
No. Not at all, my friend.
He had the box on him full of the stuff. He must have been a drug fiend.
Method, my dear Hastings. Let us not jump to conclusions.
Yes.
Remember, of course, that the tragedy was a double one.
Yes, the next morning, Miss Courtenay was found in her bedroom, dead!
Sorry, it's getting a bit odd in here.
Now, she had died of an overdose of cocaine. Her maid confirmed that she was a taker of the drug.
Ugh, these young people and their poisons.
And a diagnosis of accidental death was recorded, yes?
Yes, but we can't rule suicide out. Her death is particularly unfortunate since it leaves us no clue as to the cause of the quarrel the night before.
Those are the facts of the case. What do you think of it, Poirot?
I think of it. I should like to speak to some of the members of the party commedia. First, the American, Mrs. Malaby, I think, and then the uncle, the now Viscount, the Honorable Eustace Beltane. Perhaps you can ask him to bring along his little figurines, eh? Do you think that can be arranged, my friend?
I should think so.
Excellent. But first, some lunch. Will you stay, Inspector?
Oh, I should love to. I'm famished. I don't think the missus would mind.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Miss Lemon. It is fruitless to employ the little grey cells without proper sustenance and nutrition. Bon appetit.
Later that afternoon, Poirot and I were awaiting our interviews. First up was the infamous Black Widow, Mrs. Malaby.
Mrs. Malaby, sir?
Mrs. Isabella Malaby was a dark-haired woman with sharp, pointed eyes that darted about the room.
Welcome, Madame Malaby.
Oh, hello back at ya. It's nice to meet ya. I've never met a private dick before.
Yes, well, thank you for coming.
Oh, naturally. I'm just happy to help how any way I can. Oh, you have a wonderful apartment. Just wonderful. Oh, that secretary gal, where'd she come from? Oh, she looks like a scared cat. I'd like to treat her to a day at the salon for a good girl's day out, you know?
I wonder if you might reiterate to Captain Hastings and myself the events of the Victory Ball.
What a terror. A trauma. Oh, tragedy. I'm just beside myself with grieving.
Yes, it must have been frightening.
Oh, the party decorations were horrible. Oh, that party was a dud, believe you me. Those guests had no zap. I can tell you, back in New York, we would have had more electric guests.
Mrs. Malaby, whose principal interests in life were the observation of people around her and the sound of her own voice, continued to talk.
I mean, Victory Ball, more like Victory Ball. I was having a terrible time. I spent the entire evening with Margaret Davidson. Ugh, what a snoozer she is. She stuck by me all night, like glue, after her husband brought Coco home. My date, my darling Eustace, was distracted all night.
The Honorable Eustace Beltane.
Yes.
Why was he distracted?
Just preoccupied with some, sale of some statues or knickknacks or something. There was a guest who was gouging him on the price of some cat statues. Maybe it was some dog statues. And then late that evening, I overheard an argument in the little dining room. One of the disputants was Eustace.
Disputants?
Yes.
I say.
Good word, ain't it?
Well, yes.
I learned it in the daily crossword.
I say.
And at what time did you overhear the argument?
About 1 a.m, I'd say.
And that was shortly before you spoke with Lord Cronshaw?
Yeah, about 20 minutes later, I saw Crunchy. The last time I saw him. Alive.
Yoo-hoo! Hello there, Crunchy! Oh, come on down, it'd be so
sociable. He was on the balcony, you see. What are you moping about up there? There's a good rag coming on now. Come on down and dance with me.
Right. Wait for me, or I shall never find you in the crowd.
And Cronshaw turned and left the balcony. I waited forever alone on that dance floor. I thought, does this dope think I'm going to wait all night for him? He'd been like a bear with a sore head all evening. I just couldn't understand what he had gotten to. But then, I found him in the dining room. Dead!
Ah! Oh, dear.
Shall we have some tea?
The Honourable Eustace Beltane.
The sixth Viscount was a man of 50, with a suave manner and a handsome, dissolute face, evidently an elderly roue with the languid manner of a poseur. I took an instant dislike to him.
Thank you for coming, Monsieur Beltane.
Certainly. Such a severe sadness and serious sorrow. Such a vicissitude. We shall snatch the scoundrel who slayed the sweet soul.
The police are doing all they can, I know.
I expect the enigma of the execution will never be explained. Mess makes me mystified.
Your nephew, did he have any enemies that you were aware of?
None. Nephew never had nemesis. No, not that I know of.
Thank you, my lord. I also wonder if you might tell me, and forgive me, monsieur, if this is indiscreet, but I would be remiss if I were not to ask. You did perhaps benefit by your nephew's death?
That's accurate. Well, his estate and his authority, absolutely. Well, perhaps Poirot, please perceive that I prefer my progeny to be in the land of the living.
Of course.
Viscount, several people declared that they heard a violent altercation going on outside the little supper room just before 1 a.m., and that you were one of the disputants.
Disputants?
Yes.
Well, I was in a mood more than merry after midnight. I was taken to town by a trafficker of feline figurines. The fiend had risen the fee 45 times that of the first fee. As I forwarded the foe my fist, for the felines seemed more flea-bitten than fine for that frightening fee. What's worse is that the waresman was worse for whiskey. I battled that brute with both my brain and my butt.
All right, that explains it.
And in any case, you were dressed as Punchinello, no? With the ruffle and the hat and the hump.
No, the costumes were completely cast from the clown's cast, down to the closest component.
Yes. And Viscount, did you perhaps bring your collection with you today as requested?
Oh, certainly. Yes. I surrendered a suitcase to your secretary.
I shall call for it now. Oh, Miss Lemon, I wonder if you might be so kind as to bring us some tea?
Yes, Monsieur Poirot.
Proceed, Poirot. I paid a pretty penny for this parcel.
The Viscount vacated his valise. Soon a set of 6 china figures sat on the table. Poirot examined the miniatures meticulously, mentioning to us as he did so.
Oh, voila. The old Italian comedy. 3 pairs. Harlequin and Colombina, Poirot and Pirouette, and Punchinello and Coulsonnet. Oh, the costume of Punchinello is quite elaborate. Yes, with the frill and the high hat and the hump. It's a very elaborate indeed.
The costume was quite constricting. I had to have help unhitching the balloon.
Ah, that is all I wanted to be sure of, Viscount. Thank you. And thank you for sharing your collection with us today. Oh, and now it is time for tea. I hope you will join us, sir. Excellent. This is a herbal tisane of my own devisement. It is a remedy for all of the ailments. Enjoy.
Well, what now, Poirot? I've got to report to the yard when I get there, you know.
Bien. There's just one little matter to attend to, and then
Yes?
the case shall be complete.
What?
You know who killed Lord Cronshaw?
Of course.
Well, who was it?
Was it Eustace Beltane?
Oh, my friends, you know my little weakness. I like to keep the threads in my hand up to the last minute. But don't worry, I shall reveal all when the time comes. And I want no credit. The affair shall be yours, Jep, on the condition you allow me to play out the denouement my own way.
Yeah, all right, if the denouement ever comes, but I say you are an oyster, aren't you? Ah, here we are.
Driver, 2 of us are going to an alternate location. Please take us to Chelsea.
All right, I'll see you later, I hope.
Where are we going now?
To see the Davidsons.
What do you think of the new Lord Cronshaw?
What does my good friend Hastings think?
Well, I distrust him instinctively.
Oh, you think he is the evil uncle of the storybooks, eh?
Don't you?
Me? I think he was most amiable towards us.
Because he had his reasons.
No method.
We arrived at our destination. The Davidsons lived on the 3rd floor. Ow! Oh! Oh, no. We ran into Mr. Davidson coming out of his apartment. Matthew Davidson was handsome in a rather obvious style, tall and dark with the easy grace of an actor. Poirot explained our connection to the case.
Hello there, friends, and welcome. I do apologise, but I must hurry off to a rehearsal at Airfly Studios. I'm in a radio play tonight, you see. I play the hero. It's on at 8. I do hope you'll tune in. Perhaps we can chat tomorrow? Would you mind terribly?
It is no matter. I wonder if Madame Davidson is home. I would only take but a moment of her time.
Oh, certainly Maggie's in. Thank you for understanding.
Of course, of course. I do have one question, Monsieur Davidson. Perhaps you could clear up a small matter for me? Excellent. When you escorted Madame Courtenay in the taxi, did you walk her to her front door before returning home?
Oh, well, I sat inside with Coco for quite some time. She was quite worked up. I stayed so long I missed the end of the party.
Of course, of course. Bien, bien. That is what I recall from the reports. Thank you.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for understanding. Must be off now.
Have a good show, old chap.
Break all of your legs.
Thanks.
The Davidsons' flat was cozy, without too much attention to style or taste. A charmingly pungent incense hung in the air. Mrs. Margaret Davidson came to us almost immediately, a small, fair creature whose fragility would have been appealing had it not been for the rather shrewd and calculating gleam in her light eyes. Poirot handled the introductions.
Poor old Crunch. And poor Coco, too. We were both so fond of her. Her death is a terrible tragedy to us. What is it you want to ask me? Must I go over that dreadful evening again?
Oh, Madame, Inspector Japp has told me all that is needful. I only wish to see the costume you wore to the ball that night.
Oh.
You understand, I desire to reconstruct the evening of the crime.
Well, of course I've heard of reconstructing a crime, but I had no idea you'd be so particular about the details. Well, I have the dress right here.
He took it from her and examined it, returning it with a bow.
Merci, Madame. I see you have had the misfortune of losing one of your green pom-poms on the shoulder here.
Oh, yes, well, it got torn off during the ball, and I gave it to poor Lord Cronshaw to keep for me.
That was after supper?
Yes.
Shortly before the tragedy, perhaps.
No. Long before that. Quite soon after supper, in fact.
I see. Well, that is all. I will not derange you further. Bonjour, madame. We will take our exit. What do you think, mon ami?
Well, that seems to explain the mystery of the green pom-pom.
I wonder.
Why? What do you mean?
Did you see me examine the garment, my friend?
Yes?
Bien. Well, the missing pom-pom? It was not wrenched off as the lady had suggested. No. It had been cut off, my friend. Cut off with scissors. The threads were all quite even.
Dear me!
Yes. Let me employ the little grey sense.
I wonder if... Sorry.
Aha! I have it!
Do you? The whole thing seems to have become terribly complicated.
No. On contraire, my friend. Everything is becoming more and more simple.
Poirot, one day I shall murder you. Your habit of finding everything extremely simple is aggravating to the last degree.
But when I explain myself, isn't it always completely simple, my friend?
Yes, and that's the annoying part of it. I feel then that I could have worked it out myself.
And that you could, Hastings, that you could. If only you would, take the trouble to arrange your ideas, as I have suggested many times. The method, my friend.
Yes. What happens next? Are you really going to reconstruct the crime.
Hardly that. Let us just say, the drama may be over, but I suggest that we add a little theatre.
The following Tuesday was Poirot's mysterious performance. The preparations intrigued me greatly. A white screen had been erected at one side of the room, flanked on either side by heavy yellow curtains. A man with some lighting apparatus arrived, smoking one of those infernal French cigars. He was followed by...
You have stepped on my life, and you have stepped on my feet!
Maureen, no, it was a choice, Maureen!
Group of members of the theatrical profession who disappeared into Poirot's bedroom, which had been rigged up as a temporary dressing room.
Maureen, no, it was a choice, Maureen!
Shortly before 8, Jap arrived in no very cheerful mood.
Bit melodramatic, like all his ideas.
His lordship arrived first, escorting the devastating Mrs. Mallaby. Poirot had arranged seats for the party facing the screen. The Davidsons followed. Poirot switched out the lights. Poirot's voice rose out of the gloom.
Messieurs, mesdames, a world of explanation. 6 figures in turn will pass across this screen. They are familiar to you. Poirot, the solemn clown, and his beautiful Pierrette. Punchinello, the buffoon, and elegant Pulcinella. Lovely Columbina, lightly dancing. Harlequin, the sprite, invisible to man.
It seemed to me that the proceedings had gone singularly flat. If the criminal was among us and Poirot expected him to break up at the sight of a mere familiar figure, then the device had failed signally. Shh. Sorry.
Now, messieurs and mesdames, if you would be so kind as to tell me, one at a time, what you have just seen. Will you begin, monsieur?
Tell me what we have been seeing.
Well, we have seen 6 silhouettes strutting about the screen, representing the old Italian comedy, or ourselves the other night.
Never mind about the other night. The first part of your speech is what I was wanting. Madame, do you agree with Viscount that you saw the 6 figures of the old Italian comedy?
Well, yes.
Monsieur and Madame Davidson, do you agree?
Yes. 6 commedia figures.
Yes, of course.
Hastings? Jack?
Yes.
Yes. You were all in the count?
Yes.
And yet, you were all wrong. Your eyes have lied to you, as they lied to you on the night of the Victory Ball.
To see with your own eyes is not necessarily to see the truth. Know then that tonight, as on the night of the Victory Ball, you saw not 6 figures, but 5.
What do you mean,
See the figure bound onto the screen. Who is that? Is it Poirot?
Looks like him to me.
Yes.
Look again.
With a swift movement, the performer divested himself of his loose Pierrot garb. There in the limelight stood, glittering, Harlequin.
Good gracious!
At the same moment, there was a cry, and a chair overturned.
Cuss you hard again!
Matthew Davidson, you are under arrest for the murder of Viscount Cronshaw. Anything you say will be used as evidence against you.
Poirot's odd little theatrical device had worked after all. A quarter of an hour later, a beaming Poirot was dispensing another of his charming herbal tisanes and answering my eager questions.
It was all very simple.
The green pom-pom was possibly torn from the costume of the murderer. I fixed upon Poirot or Poirot as the possible criminal, but Poirot was with Pulcinella all evening, and Poirot left the ball nearly 2 hours before the murder was committed. So, he must either have returned to the ball later to kill Lord Cronshaw, or, bien, he must have killed his victim before he left.
Was that impossible? Who had seen Lord Cronshaw after supper that evening?
Mrs. Mallaby had seen him on the balcony, of course, and Mrs. Davidson said she gave Cronshaw the pom-pom.
But Mrs. Davidson's statement was a deliberate fabrication.
I asked myself, did she cut it off her own costume? No, she did not. Monsieur Davidson, vile and desperate, cut the pom-pom off of his wife's costume himself, attempting to confuse the authorities, or, even worse, frame his own wife. She realized what was happening and selflessly went along with the ruse.
But it was too late. She was revealed.
My word!
Harlequin, who was seen at 1:30 on the balcony by Mrs. Mallaby, must have been an impersonation.
It couldn't have been Cronshaw because he was already dead.
Precisement.
I had considered the possibility of Monsieur Beltane being the guilty party, but with the Viscount's elaborate costume, it was clearly impossible that he could have doubled the roles of Punchinello and Harlequin.
On the other end, to Davidson, it was simplicity itself.
He is a young man of about the same height as the murdered man, and an actor by profession, with access to unlimited costume supplies.
Yes, he is an excellent actor. Really, he is dashing.
Why, thank you.
Of course.
But one thing worried me.
Only one?
Surely a doctor could not fail to perceive the difference between a man who has been dead 2 hours and one that has been dead 10 minutes.
Bien, the doctor did perceive it. He commented at the inquest on the abnormal stiffening of the limbs for which he was quite unable to account.
There was an abnormal stiffening of the limbs for which I was quite unable to account.
All was now marching famously for my theory.
Davidson had killed Lord Cronshaw immediately after supper.
But wait. When did he manage to do that?
Recall, Hastings, when Miss Courtenay requested that Davidson take her home.
At once! I am just sick of this ball!
Yes, and Davidson tried to secure a reconciliation, seeking first an audience with Lord Cronshaw in the supper room, alone.
That is when Poirot stabbed Harlequin with the knife.
The butter knife.
It was a terrible crime, indeed. But Davidson, ever that performer, forged ahead. He left the little supper room, escorted Miss Courtenay home, and then returned post-haste to the Victory Ball.
But before he arrived, he made a simple transformation by removing his outer costume. So, he arrived back at the ball dressed as Harlequin, not Poirot.
But if so, he must have come to the ball prepared to kill his victim. What earthly motive could he have had? The motive, that's what I can't get.
Ah, there we come to the second tragedy.
That of Miss Courtenay. Lord Cronshaw, who was almost fanatically opposed to drug-taking, discovered that she was addicted to cocaine and took her enamel box of the droog, engraved with her initial C.
C for Courtenay, or Coco, or both.
Well, yes.
But Miss Courtenay died of cocaine poisoning. With her supply of the drug in the hands of Lord Cronshaw, where then did she obtain the dose which killed her?
Precisement. Only one person could have supplied the droog. Davidson.
Davidson was a dealer!
And that explains everything. It accounts for her friendship with the Davidsons and her demand that Davidson escort her home. Cronshaw suspected that Davidson was the supplier.
Davidson doubtlessly denied this, but Lord Cronshaw determined to get the truth from Miss Courtenay at the ball. He could forgive the wretched girl, but he would certainly have no mercy on the man who made a living by trafficking in droogs. Exposure and ruin confronted Davidson.
He went to the ball, determined that Cronshaw's silence must be obtained at any cost.
Was Coco's death an accident, then?
I suspect it was an accident, cleverly engineered by Davidson.
She was furiously angry with Cronshaw for taking her cocaine from her. Davidson supplied her with more, and probably suggested her augmenting the dose as a defiance to old Crunch.
One other thing. The recess and the curtain, how did you know about them?
Why, mon ami, that is the most simple of all. Waiters were in and out of that little supper room all evening. So obviously the body could not have been lying where it was found on the floor. There must be somewhere in the room where a body could be hidden. I deduced a curtain with a recess behind it. Davidson dragged the body in there, and then later, after drawing attention to himself as the double harlequin, he dragged it back out again before finally leaving the hall. It was one of his best moments. He is a very clever fellow.
But in Poirot's green eyes, I could see the unmistakable, unspoken statement.
But not quite so clever as Hercule Poirot.
I don't know much about the costumes, and anyway, I don't see what that has got to do with anything.
Inspector Chen, I have one question.
Yes.
And I have no idea what it is.
I think I know.
Indeed, that would be quite overdoing it.
Yes. What? Damn it!
I'm sorry. I couldn't think of the words.
Hello.
Was there anything you'd like to see, Poirot?
No.
I know that's not how.
you see the fly? I bet you can.
I do not see it come into shop.
Yeah, that was close. That was so close. Do we have a fly spotter?
Fair creature whose fragility would have seemed pathetic and appealing, not for the bugs in her apartment.
My good Jack, what brings you to see us today?
No, I've slept in weirder positions, so like, this is another
What?
I didn't believe that absolutely.
I didn't believe it.
Cut. How was it?
Nailed it. Acting hard. Jimmy, take one. Can you do that again?
Sure. It's very elaborate indeed.
Costume was constricting. I had to have a helping hand to unhitch my habiliment.
What was that word again?
Habiliment.
Ah, I see.
Yes.
Well, we'll cut.
Habiliment. Habiliment. Habiliment.
I guess one of those will work. These are pretty good. Ooh, Miss Lemon makes a good,
Should be some meat sandwich. God, because I'm ripping.
sustenance and nutrition. Well, let's start again because you held the knife high. You held it on the frame.
I see where.
But wait.
Poirot's odd little theatrical device had worked after all.
Cut.
Hard face. He's got to focus.
Hey, back in New York, we would have had more electric guests. Yeah, and then I would say this, and then that, and the other thing, and then
Cut.
Poirot took it from her and observed it minutely before returning to it.
What's that?
That's
Yes,
all right.
What's that indeed?
Was cut.
Sorry.
Please explain to me what my line is. What's
This is a double murder.
Ah! I am.
Matthew Davidson was handsome in
It's a very plain way.
handsome in a very handsome in a very
You called me tall at one point.
tall and dark with the obvious.
The tall line.
It was the tall line.
If you could clear up a small matter for me. When you escorted Madame Courtenay home in the cab, did fuck me. Hello? Yep, no one's home. Cut.
Damn it.
Cut. Cut.
I'm like, when am I gonna get a cut?
Open Stage would like to acknowledge the Susquehannock peoples, upon whose unceded land we produce this show. Open Stage commits to the work of dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and the exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples that continue today. At Open Stage, we also believe that Black Lives Matter, and you should too. That belief starts with acknowledging plainly how the systems we depend on often operate as if they don't. We at Open Stage proudly stand united with Black people and communities of color during this movement of unrest and uprising. This show is brought to you by Open Stage, a professional theater company. Check out Open Stage's complete list of shows, all of which are offered completely free this season at openstagehbg.com. Thank you and enjoy the show.